September 30th, 1935. Hoover Dam is dedicated. Critics rave that it's slightly less boring than the rest of Arizona. Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And we are super excited to have our guest tonight, the absentee father of Denver comedy, maybe. Brad Galli is here.
Hello. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for being here.
Of course.
Zach, how are you?
Same old. It's getting into that old fall autumnal spirit,
Yep, that it sure is with the whole rotation.
The pumpkins are ripe and orange, and Halloween around the corner.
Smelling
which
those
means
fireplaces.
our annual spooktacular is not this episode, but the next one, which I'm very much looking
why are
forward
we
to.
even talking about it this episode?
Well, people need to prepare for all the frights and the fears
That's
they're
true.
going to be experiencing.
Make sure you buy all the rubber bats you can while you listen, just to add to the atmosphere.
Adult diapers for all of the
Shitting you will
forced
do.
incontinence that will come upon you as a result of fear.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll also ship the podcast with a shitload of Alestra. That was the thing that made you shit a bunch, right? In the chips.
Alestra?
Yeah.
I thought that sounds like allergy medicine.
Oh, maybe something made you shit a lot. I don't know. Look it up.
E. coli?
Well, yes. Yeah.
Well, several diseases. Some make you shit to the point of death. I've heard.
I've heard. I've not experienced.
I have not experienced it, surprisingly. Yeah, so far. Knock on some wood there.
Surprisingly. Yeah, I've seen your vision
considering
board.
my eating habits.
That's true.
A lot of dumpster-based
You eat like a man who's
cuisine.
already shat himself to death.
Yeah. There's been some close calls.
It's a fait accompli at this point. Mm-hmm. What do we do on this fucking show?
On this fucking show, we talk about a person or event from history. One of the three of us will give a real account of that person and or event. Another will give a batshit bananas crazy version of that person or event. And at the end, we will vote on which becomes the true history of this bright blue marble we call the world going forward. And, the last time we talked about Charlotte Despard, an icon for women's rights in the build-up to World War I, and then an anti-war activist during World War I. And in the end, the true history of this inspiring woman won against the story where she was a gender-swapped, inglorious bastard who killed Hitler, mostly because that's going to make our World War II segment super confusing
either confusing or very uneventful.
Yeah, true. But this time, we're discussing, we're getting back to the men. Enough of this woman shit. We're talking about a real man's man, maybe. I don't know anything about him. John French.
Well, that took a weirdly chauvinistic turn a little bit.
You know what? I'm taking the podcast in a new direction, whether you want it or not. I've been reading a lot of Reddit, and my eyes are open, baby.
Yeah, you've been on fucking Red Pill or whatever?
Yes. Red Pill, the MRA group who took their name from a film by two trans women that's probably about coming out as an LGBT person. Yeah.
Is that what The Matrix is about?
If you watch it realizing they're both trans women, which no one knew at the time, and realized this is a man who felt out of place in his normal identity and then assumed a new identity, it seems like it might be about being a transgender person.
That's interesting.
Having not watched The Matrix in many years, I can see that reading of it. But this is not Matrix talk. This is
that's our closing segment that usually runs about 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah, and we do it 3 times, only one of which is worth listening to.
Mm-hmm.
But Brad, you're doing the true history this time.
Yeah, I said, are we doing John French because that's Charlotte Despard's brother? Is that what brought this here?
That is, I mean, they're both like prominent figures, but yeah, sort of that's why this is the pairing.
Perfect.
September is sibling month here on The Revisionists.
It was one of John French's 6 sisters. He was the only boy and a child.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I listeners will recall last episode, I named 2 of his siblings, and I was like, there was probably more. Fuck it.
Yeah.
And I was doing the true history.
One of them was inspiring, and one of them was sad.
Mm-hmm.
I think I already like Charlotte Despard more than John French.
Oh, yeah.
But, what are you going to do?
But if you're all ready, Brad, take it away.
I am. First, I'd like to wish a happy birthday to Mr. French. Born on September 28th, 1852. He would have been 165 years old today, but he died of bladder cancer in 1925 at the age of 73.
And, I mean, was also born 165 years ago.
He was born quite a long time ago.
So probably,
but
even without the bladder cancer, would not have made it.
he maybe could have made it into the 40s, but,
I mean, in old-timey Bible ages, that's not that long of a life.
No, that's true. Methuselah looks upon this death as a tragedy.
That's true, but for a guy born in the 1850s who did a lot of things in war shit, that's a long life.
Yeah, that is true.
Did a lot of dipping and ducking.
And
but
someone who,
And that's why
fucked a whole bunch
context
like he
matters.
yes, that's true. Probably what maybe got that bladder cancer. Who knows?
did. Yeah, that's...
Probably wasn't going too
It's
much
not
to
an
his...
STD. That's not...
I mean,
John
that's
French-
kind of... That's not too far off from a disease that makes you shit to death.
No.
I mean, it's a little different, but there's similarities.
I mean, when he was in the South African War, I'm sure he wasn't thinking about getting tested
Yeah.
every several months like you should. But,
God damn it.
we'll start with the true history. He commanded, I think what he's most known for is he commanded the British Army on the Western Front in World War I between August of 1914 and December of 1915. And he ended because he basically resigned under pressure at that point. The battles fought under him at, I'm having a hard time pronouncing the city in Belgium. It's Ypres. I think it's
Ypres, I believe.
Ypres.
Yep. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's Ypres.
It sounds...
But fair
So
enough.
it's pronounced like ye pray. Like, it sounds like an internet meme almost waiting to happen if World War I had happened in the internet age.
Oh, God, that
Like
would have
if-
been terrible.
Yeah, yeah, I suppose so.
That's the only thing that would have made World War I worse.
Or memes.
Yeah, more memes.
Well, that's how World War
Yeah.
III is going to be entirely fought,
Oh my
is just
God,
with
yeah.
memes. So,
Yeah, I think
it's
that's
kind
that
of a
famous
blessing.
saying,
If World-
I know
if
not
World War-
with which weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with memes.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, World War IV will be fought with Grumpy Cat and fucking Pepe the Frog.
Just your 2 different types of ants throwing up different memes at each other. Everyone's got an overly conservative ant and then a liberal ant that just...
Oh, I thought you meant like ANT. Like,
No, aunt,
Like
yeah.
the only things that would survive.
Surely the minions will be the front lines. They'll just be meat for the grinder in
Yeah,
that
man.
particular war.
I mean, until the minions get class consciousness, yeah, I think that'll be the way it pans out.
Yeah,
Oh my god, I so hope Despicable Me 4 is about the minions discovering Marxism.
Yeah, it's despicable means of production. Oh,
there we
God
go.
damn it. Okay.
That's a good one, though. I like that.
Despicable Mingles?
That's a meme
I'm
waiting
trying
to
to do
happen.
Ingalls,
Despicable
but-
means of production.
Yeah.
That's one thing that the communists really do have. I mean, I don't know. They have really good memes because I'm friends with a few communists on Facebook, and they really do a good job
Yeah,
of teaching
everyone
about
is.
communism through memes. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, it's not insufferable in the least.
It's really the
Exactly.
way it was meant to be taught. The Communist Manifesto was a good first attempt, but I think
Yeah.
we've really refined.
Yeah.
they do have a killer meme game though. I won't take that away from them. But
Oh, God.
so anyway, the battles fought under him at that Belgian place. They were noteworthy because of how many troops that went down under his watch. 117,000 to be exact. And before he was running the British Army, he made his bones as a soldier starting in 1874. He became famous in Britain with a successful leadership of the British cavalry against the Boers, who were, I think, were the Dutch settlers in the South African War. That lasted from like 1899 to 1902. After that, he was appointed Inspector General in 1907. One thing I noticed about John French is he had British people loved titles, and they just kept throwing titles at this dude.
Yeah.
First one, Inspector General in 1907, and then he was the Chief of the Imperial General Staff in 1913. And I could have looked up what that is, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was just like, I couldn't bring myself to type in those words into Google.
Yeah.
On August 23rd of 1914, he directed the first major engagement of British troops in World War I, at the time the Great War. The German strength in that battle forced him to retreat, and French intended to cover the withdrawal of the French Fifth Army, and as a delaying action to this, the battle was actually deemed a success. So he started off good directing these troops, but he was criticized for his failure to coordinate the movements of his two corps or even remain. I'm flipping over my notebook here. Sorry.
I mean, there was that moment in the Charlotte Despard story where she had that diary entry that was like, I'm proud of my brother for retreating real well.
Yeah, that's true. That was an excerpt.
He's a classic retreater, this guy. When he was retreating, he wasn't in touch with the other commanders of the other armies at the time, so he got a lot of flack for that. Next battle, it was a costly battle at Le Cateau, France. He lost his temper, and he wanted to withdraw entirely from the country of France in World War I at that point. At least, at the very least, what was the name of that river? I think the Seine River?
Seine
River, yeah. He wanted to withdraw his troops from there. The only reason he didn't is because the British Secretary of State for War, Lord Kitchener, told him to stay and work more closely with the French and the Belgian armies. He had John French wasn't very good about that. He was kind of just...
Yeah. He did not speak French very well.
No. Even though, I mean, odd last name for an Englishman is French.
Classic
Kinda
misnomer.
unfortunate. Yeah.
They were actually switched at birth. Or like they peed in the same magic fountain sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, John English was often seen running around with a beret and a baguette sticking out of his sack.
Jean Ingles.
Yeah, exactly.
He was the commander of the French army.
Then they pulled a fucking Parent Trap.
Yeah. This is long lost brother. Then on October 19th of 1914, French ordered his force, increased by that time to 3 corps, to start 2 branched offensive eastward, that weird city in Belgium that I can't pronounce. And then the British collided with the German armies that began with an offensive of their own the next day. The bitter resistance of French's army helped prevent... So the French army is kicking ass this whole time. Not French's army.
But the French army.
But the French army. This is a little Abbott and Costello.
And not the
I'm
French's
doing.
mustard army, which was a private army at the time.
I want to clarify, when you say the one you can't pronounce, are you referring to Lokatu, which I'm just going to pronounce like the Mario villain? Or are you referring to Ypres, which I'm just going to remember by the joke I came up with too late? Ye pray love.
I was going to say that same
damn it.
God damn it.
It's 2 killer puns so far. Ye pray love and
we
despicable
are
means of production.
on fire.
You guys are pun. I'll try to have one by the end of this. A good pun.
We can retire.
But the bitter resistance of French's army helped prevent the German forces, but French's troops were nowhere to be found as they made no advancement after that. So they just weren't there. 3 more battles after that in Neuve Chapelle and Ypres, and then Loos all produced the same results from French's army. French's indecisiveness at Loos, that's what led to his removal, and that was in December of 1915. So he didn't have that job for too long, 15 months.
Wait, the city was called Luz?
It was, I think,
Loos.
Loos, L-O-O-S.
Yeah, something
Loos.
like that.
Okay.
These are
right, fair
way
enough.
harder than a lot of the Russian words, which are at least like somewhat phonetically like plausible. Like these are Belgium. What you doing?
I just feel like there's a way you could turn having a battle at a city called Luz into a kind of who's on first conversation about the outcome of said battle, but I haven't
like
figured
tens
it
of
out
thousands
quite
of
yet.
People die.
That's already what's going on, like with John French being in charge of England.
Jesus Christ.
Who's there? France, and then French's armies. Who?
Get your shit
French's
together,
army.
World War I.
The English, exactly, yeah. But he was removed after that. And then after that, French was made... This is another title that he gets. He was made a Viscount in 1916.
Viscount?
A Viscount?
Yeah, something like
I cannot
that.
pronounce shit today.
I like that this is just... This podcast is now just Brian correcting people's pronunciations.
Is that how
my
that
God,
word is? It's another word I've never seen, though.
It's a part of Born to Play, baby.
I have run into Viscount before. I think, it's just one of those jobs that everybody in a romantic comedy always has, but you don't really know what it is. Doesn't really exist in real life.
In a romantic comedy is a Viscount of something. No, I feel like I picked that up from, like, Phantom Menace. I feel like one of the members of the trade delegation was...
Yeah, that sounds like some bullshit George Lucas would come up with.
Was it spelled Viscount?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Brian's been on Wikipedia a lot recently.
Yeah, I've been... Look.
Well, he was made a Viscount in 1916. I don't know what that does either. Just another title they gave John French. And then he became an Earl in 1922. Lucky boy. He was another title. He was Commander-in-Chief in the UK and then Lord Lieutenant of Ireland at the same time from 1918 to 1921. That was before he became an Earl. And we'll backtrack a little bit here. In 1919, he published a book called 1914.
God damn it, guys.
Which I don't think enough time had passed.
Yeah.
You can't like no one wants to read about 5 years before.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I mean, we get like...
And it would not work so well if Orwell had published a book called 1949, and it was...
Yes, 1953.
Yeah.
Oh, man, you did not disappoint.
And that book was just his own account of the war, basically what he thought happened.
Also, one of the things about John French makes him notable in the war is, along with a lot of the other British officers, he was a cavalry man through and through. And so he was very dedicated to keeping the cavalry as it existed in the 1800s in the wars of the 1900s. And that led to a lot of unnecessary deaths. Because machine guns were invented and barbed wire was invented and cavalry was basically useless. But it was the thing that rich country people did. And so they were like, we have to keep doing this. Because World War I is insane.
That it was. Yeah, that was all the war stuff. As far as personal life, he was married a couple times with his first wife, Isabella Soundy. They got divorced. The divorce could have ruined his career if widely known. I guess it was frowned upon.
Yeah.
To be divorced back then.
And there was he had an affair. He had many affairs. A notable one when he was stationed in India with the wife of a fellow officer.
Oh, wow. Piece of garbage.
Yeah. Which was kind of a no-no. But Brad, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Giles.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Michelle.
And we're the Beyond the Trope podcast.
Every week, we delve into topics like pop culture, fiction writing, and other nerdy things.
We feature laid-back conversations, bad puns, and in-depth interviews with authors, comic creators, and more. Find our show at beyondthetrope.com.
So, John French, a lot of what he did in the war still stands, but just sort of have a different take on the man. John French was a strange child, aloof, sweaty, liked arson. He did get along with his sister Charlotte, despite his aloofness. But as a child, he developed an obsessive streak, which did carry through to his adulthood. There, at one point...
I just have to say real quick, I'm, again, kind of glad we didn't go for the alternate last time, because it would be harder to tell the story if Charlotte was born in, 40 years after him.
Although that alternate was really fun.
It was. It was only for logistical reasons.
True. So his obsessive streak carried through to his adulthood. At one point, he wrote in a letter to a fellow officer who was depressed. I don't know why I said it like I didn't know what that means. Clearly I do.
Yeah. You have the DSM-5 out in front of you, and you're like, what's the word? Depressed?
Adapil?
It would be a great switch if
fellow officer, quote, I have constantly told my great pals and friends that I would like to end my life being shot while serving under you. Which was also his Tinder bio. His first obsession as a child was rugby, aka football, aka field punching. But in whatever British high school is called, he didn't Hogwarts or whatever. He didn't make the team because his classmates found him too horny. So he would sit.
I'm sorry, did you say corny or horny?
Horny.
Okay.
So he sat.
Important distinction.
Yeah, just to clarify.
Most people cannot be both unless they are Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery.
Yeah. So he would watch the field punching, and one day he was approached by his classmate, Alan Strang. And Strang invited French to join Horse Club, which at the time was just Strang and like 6 horses. And French quickly refocused his
Not
obsession.
to be confused with the popular item at the time, an actual horse club.
Yeah, which was used as a miracle cure for shitty horses.
They didn't have Netflix yet, so they had to pass the time somehow.
Yeah,
and horse clubs were all the rage, of course.
God damn it. French quickly refocused his rugby obsession on horses. He would often ask his paramours to eat handfuls of oats before and after sex. He was a strange person. I should add, at no point did he fuck any horses. We have no evidence of this.
Was he also potentially Wilford Brimley?
Mayhaps.
I don't know, but for a guy that wanted to keep the cavalry around so much, maybe we couldn't put it past him.
Oh, honey, just you wait. Sorry. So eventually he joins the cavalry, but his obsession was about to become darker. So he got his first taste of murdering horses in Sudan, and after that he was sort of hooked. And yeah,
I mean, that's why the horse club was so popular. You do it once, you want to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of the imp of the perverse. And the Boer War rolled around, and he was celebrated for his cavalry charges. They were just a way for him to put horses in danger. He fought after the Boer War. The army was getting together and be like, we should change the weapons cavalry has because they carried like swords and lances, which even into like the 1910s. And they wanted to get rid of the lance, and he fought to keep the lance as a cavalry weapon, which he told people it reminded him of his penis, which was not true. He found his penis short and confounding. Really, it was to put horses in danger. So at this point, he teamed up with a man named Douglas Haig, which, interestingly, if you rearrange the letters in Douglas Haig, you get Otis Toole.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I see where this is going.
And he...
Spooktober is next month, Brian.
It's the Spooktacular. Thank you.
I get a vote too.
Sorry. That's true. I was just going off of precedent. He did often make the statement that the next war would begin with a grand cavalry charge. And so World War I begins, and he's put in charge. And suddenly, statisticians back home are seeing horse death rates spike. And it was at this point that a letter arrives addressed to the Horse London Times, which was the oldest continuously operating newspaper by horses and for horses in the Greater London metropolitan area. And it was addressed to their star reporter, Flapjack, and it had a letter containing an elaborate code.
I will say, as far as horse names go, Flapjack is extremely mild. I don't know if you've watched the Kentucky Derby, but that shit gets crazy.
Yeah, I didn't have time to get into like really fucking lavish horse names. So there was the letter had an elaborate code, which, when broken, said, "This is Horse Zodiac speaking. I like killing horses because it is so much fun. It is exactly like killing wild game in the forest," and so on. It went on for pages. And Horse London Times cartoonist Buttercup becomes obsessed with the case. And meanwhile, French is fired because he's bad at war. But he continues sending letters. And Buttercup, through his obsession on the case, focuses on French, mostly through circumstantial evidence. Like, he wore a polo shirt. He was in the area of Europe around the time of the war, and he had a mustache. So, you know, and
that does seem very circumstantial.
Yeah. Over the course of World War I, 8 million horses died. Only the first million or so were John French. The rest were copycats. And after he leaves the war, John French gets a job in a hardware store, and Buttercup tracks him down after all this years of obsession and investigation. Buttercup tracks him down and walks into the hardware store, and John French is just like, "Oh, can I help you?" And Buttercup just says no, and they stare at each other for a long time. And that was later adapted into a movie. And that's the story of John French, horse Zodiac killer.
Wow. I have not seen the film Zodiac, but I assume that's the ending.
Wait, you fucking... Oh, fuck. I had just really assumed you had seen Zodiac. Shit. God damn it. How have you not seen that?
Well, it's on my to-watch list.
It is
but now I guess I can take it off.
No, it involves surprisingly few horses. Fuck. I'm surprised you had not seen that. Shit. Well, that ruins everything. Listeners, before we get to judgment, I just want to say, if you ever want to leave us a comment or ask us a question, you can do that at revisionistpodcast.com or any of our social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And please, please, please leave a written review of the podcast on iTunes if you can, which is hella helpful. We are part of the Denver Podcast Network, as I mentioned on previous episodes. And also, heads up, there's going to be a live read in a sec. I got the text right here. Denver Podcast Network is having a launch showcase party if you are in Denver. It is October 8th at Mutiny Information Cafe at 6. It's going to be a really good time. All the shows will be doing quick 5 or 10 minute sample versions of themselves a little bit, and it's going to be really fun. So check that out. One of the shows on the network is a show called Discover Weekly, which is hosted by 2 musicians and a music nerd. And each week, it's like them hanging out in a record store and talking about their what they're listening to this week. They each build a playlist, basically, and then sort of go through and take them apart a little bit. It's really fun, and one of the great things about the show is you can listen along because they release all their Spotify playlists, so you can listen along to it each time. It's basically Marxist music nerds talking their playlists. So check out Discover Weekly, which you can find a link to that at denverpodcast.net, or you can just go to discoverweekly.libsyn.com. Excuse me. And for plugs, real quick, I'm just going to say that in addition to that October 8th showcase, podcast showcase, October 5th, I'll be doing a brand new show hosted by former guest and future guest Christy Buckley called Queen City Companion. That is a fiction storytelling show that's going to be really, really cool, which is also at Mutiny Information Cafe, so check that out on October 5th. And the next Nighttime Tonight is October 19th, so check that out, because we got some out-of-town guests for that, and it's going to be really fun. But, Zach, I do believe it is judgment time.
Yeah. So, in the case of John French, the mysterious case of John French, I think with the real history, I mean, he was a celebrated military man, which is all well and good, but there's a number of those throughout history, and John French didn't strike me as an especially exceptional or overtly memorable standout figure from that group. In fact, the most interesting thing I think about him is that he is siblings with Charlotte Despard, and we covered a lot of their relationship in last week's episode. But since we went with her real history and that relationship is not in jeopardy by accepting the alternate history, and because I truly can't decide if I'm impressed or disappointed in the fact that Brian made an elaborate World War I story that heavily featured horses and never referenced the film War Horse.
Oh, fuck, I forgot about that. God damn it, I had a thing.
Oh, you had a... Okay. Well, Brian fucked up his alternate history. But since I don't give a fuck about the real John French, and I want Charlotte to have a more colorful side and a more contentious relationship with her brother, I'm still going to choose this weird hodgepodge serial killer couldn't land on an individual one.
Yeah, I did start with Henry Lee Lucas, didn't I?
Yeah, and you definitely went straight into the Zodiac after one reference to Otis Toole.
Well, the Zodiac didn't have a fucking partner, so I was like, well, fuck, I want to do this thing.
But I think I will go with the alternate just to, you know what, mostly to spice up Charlotte's story more than anything else.
All right. Well, Zach, thank you.
Yeah.
Brad, thank you.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Of course.
For everyone here at The Revisionists, I'm Brian Flynn.
I am Zach Powers.
Have a good time.